Hi, I'm Rachel from Just Another Button Company. Thank you for joining me for today's episode of Stitch School. Today I'm going to show you how to do 3D fusible fabric applique. So I've taken this moth fabric and I've turned it into an applique moth that I can put as a three-dimensional element on my project. Let me show you how it's done. So I start with this moth print fabric by One Canoe 2 from Moda, and a small square of fusible. This is So Lazy's fusible Fusibond Light, and I have my favorite pair of scissors to use for applique. They are Karen Buckley Perfect Scissors, and this is the medium size. So I'm going to take my piece of fusible that I've already cut out, and I'm going to pick out which moth I want to use. And I really like the moths that have their wings spread open as opposed to the ones where they're kind of shut like this. They're resting. These are ready to fly. So I'm going to use one of those. So I think I'll pick out this moth here because this has my favorite colors in it. So I'll center this, or if there's a couple moths around this that I like, I'll put the piece so that it's covering multiple moths. That way I can make multiples at once. And then I'm going to fuse it, and this is the back side of the fabric that I'm working with, just like you would do with any method of fusible applique. And then I'm going to cut out that section. Now these scissors are perfect for making small cuts, so this part is a little slower with these, but when I get to the important part of cutting out my moth, I'm really going to be happy that I'm using such great scissors. They're super sharp, and one side is actually serrated, so it gives you a great clean cut. So I'm going to cut pretty close to the moth. I want just a tiny bit of the white background showing, but not much. Okay, when I'm happy with what I have here, I'm going to take the paper off the back and I'm going to find a moth on my fabric that's the same. So this one is the same pattern as the one I'm holding, and I'm going to center it over top. Now these won't be completely lined up because that's just the way that printed fabric works out. They're not completely symmetrical, but I'm going to center it as best as I can, and I'm going to fuse this in place. Then I'm going to use my scissors again, and I'm just going to loosely trim this out so I don't have to work with a large piece. And I'm going to go in and trim right next to the edge of my top moth. Okay, so now I have 2 layers fused together and cut apart. And if I flip it to the back, I can see my moth on the back side is not completely cut down to just the color. So if this really bothers me, I can just trim some of this off. It's going to take it off of the front side too. If it's just a tiny little bit, I probably won't miss it on the front. So I'll just trim a little bit of this white off. And that is much better, so there's not as much white there as you can see. It's not going to bother me as much. And turn it back over, and I can't even see that there's something missing there, so it's perfect. And now the way you would apply this to your pincushion is you set it on here, and as you're appliquing your pieces onto your project or your piecing, you just sew right up the middle of it, just like you can see I did here, with a dark thread so it blends into the body. And then once it's sewn on there, just bend it in half and finger press it so that it stays dimensional, and you'll have a beautiful dimensional moth on your piece. Thanks for joining me for this episode of Stitch School.